Hey friends, welcome to the Aeroponic Tower channel. Today I'm going to show you my trellising system for my tower gardens. So I have a family tower garden kit, which is 3 flex towers with extensions. It's a kit you can buy from Tower Garden and it all comes together. It's one of my favorite because you get 3 with extensions and it's all just super easy to connect and put together. But on here we have a tremendous amount of food, and this year I am growing watermelons, cantaloupe melons, vining cucumbers. I've talked about cucumbers in the past. On my other towers, I do bush cucumbers. Bush cucumbers are going to produce less, produce smaller fruit, burn out more quickly. And this year, I really wanted a huge cucumber harvest. So I'm growing vining cucumbers, and you can grow any of those vining things on a tower garden as long as you have a trellis system. So we're going to talk about my trellis system today, what I think about it so far, and I'll show you how it works. I'm also growing okra and peppers, eggplants, and I still have some broccoli on this tower. And so far it looks like it's going to produce broccoli heads, even though we're in summer at this point. I just happened to plant them at a time where they could handle it. I had a few cauliflower in here that started bolting early. If that ever happens, I just took the greens and we use them like we would collard greens, or I juice them. So it's kind of a gamble, but so far the broccoli seems to be thriving. Worst case, I just get to eat some amazing greens. What else is on here? So we've got cucumbers, watermelons, my butternut baby squash. So those are small butternut squash. They're super sweet. We've got jelly melon. We've got snake cucumber, pumpkin. I'm only growing one type of pumpkins on here. And I think that's it. Just a bunch of different squash and vining things. Oh, spaghetti squash. There's spaghetti squash on here, and I'm sure I'm forgetting some things. But let me take you in a little closer and just talk about how do you trellis. There's lots of different ways. Really, you just need to find something to grow your plants on. And this is what I found that seemed to take up the least amount of space and give me the most surface area for trellising, so I could grow an enormous amount of vining plants. So the way I have this set up is I have this trellis, and I'll link this below. It's just a cheap arbor from Amazon. Not super great quality, but I didn't expect it to be. It's not very expensive. I will put this away for the winter and put it somewhere where it's protected. And I think it's going to last quite a few seasons before I have to replace it, which is great. So, you know, you get what you pay for. I didn't want to invest a huge amount until I knew how I really wanted to trellis these. Now, knowing how this is going, I actually love this. This is a retention wall. It goes down to our basement below. Behind these are my mulberry trees. They're about 12 feet tall. Those are the tops of my mulberry, so I can harvest from the top. I can also walk around and go down to the basement and harvest from the bottom. So I have a permaculture food forest going down there that kind of bleeds into this upper level. I really love this setup, and I could see eventually having something permanent built here for this purpose because I like this so much. It's just been so easy to take care of, and it's beautiful, and it's out of the way. It's just on our driveway, and so it just takes up this little corner over here where no one can park anyway, and it's great. So when I set these up, I had an intentional plan of the right side of this end cap one being things that don't need a trellis. So I have eggplant, I have my okra towards the bottom. These are, like I said, broccoli. As soon as these produce and are done, I'll put something else that's sort of a faster turnover thing in here. Not sure what yet, but this will give me another growing space because a lot of this stuff is going to be here for a very long time, throughout the whole season through pretty late fall. And these won't. These are going to go away, and so maybe we'll put in more broccoli or cauliflower because it'll be about the time to get those started when these are done. So all of this is things like that. Up here I have peppers, you can grow peppers on the top of your tower. You need to tie them, and you need to be mindful of what kind of pepper it is. This is a shishito pepper. I have grown these before. They make an umbrella type structure, and they're pretty solid, so I knew it could handle being on the top, and I've got it tied to the tower. Now, if for some reason it feels like it's not able to handle it, I can always move it. You can always move your plants. It's never too late. Except for vining things. You cannot move vining things. So peppers, and that's pretty much it. Broccoli, eggplant, peppers, okra on this tower. I will tell you that we are having a really hot summer for this area. It's not hot now, it actually cooled down. But some of the eggplant was really struggling, and so I had to put it in a shadier spot towards the bottom to just take some pressure off of it. So this side of the tower then is all vines. And so everything's gonna grow this direction. And when we're looking at a tower, we have 28 grow spots, and they alternate 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1. And so across here, I have 1, 2, 3. There's 10 spots that directly face the trellis. But I am also able to grow in some of these side spots, and they can still reach. So I think I have about 13 vining plants just on this one tower. I see a watermelon, I have a jelly melon, a couple different varieties of cucumbers, who knows what else. I also have a Crazy Tom tomato, which produces a ridiculous amount of tomatoes. I had it planted somewhere else and it wasn't thriving. Put it here, it's doing amazing. So this is our end cap. We've got our vining foods going this way. Where this has been really thriving so far is cucumbers. They do better. Vining cucumbers are easier. You get more food than if you're doing bush cucumbers. That is why I really wanted to find a trellising system. When some of this burns out, and actually maybe even some of that broccoli, I also want to do green beans, because you can just get a lot more food when you're growing on vines versus bush varieties. So here we have a Market More cucumber. Doing amazing. I'm actually going to harvest this one. You always want to be harvesting your food consistently in the summer, because if not, it tells the plant that it's time to reproduce, and it will put all its energy into turning this into seeds, and it'll stop fruiting. So this is about the size of a Market More. You can get a little bigger, but I want this to keep pumping energy into growing for stuff that's not very big and fruiting. And smaller cucumbers are delicious. Do we have a pocket for our cucumber? That's the question. So I've got a couple of different varieties. There's some down here. So the way I manage this, because we're dealing with squash and cucumbers, we are going to be dealing with powdery mildew, and we're going to be dealing with squash bugs. So powdery mildew, I live in a temperate rainforest. It's wet here. It's dewy a lot. We get a lot of fog. And that's a thing here. So what I do is I come out and I thin my plants quite often. And I take the leaves and I just throw them in my permaculture edible landscape, or I have a trash can behind you guys where I will collect them and then dump them across into the permaculture landscape. So I'm trying to make airflow here. I'm also trying to put eyes on my plants so I can spot if there are these squash bugs. These are not good. We don't want these. I hate killing living things, but these have to be managed. Otherwise they lay eggs. The eggs will hatch and they will wipe out an entire crop within a day if they lay enough eggs and you're not paying attention. And so I'm looking for squash bugs. I come out here, usually after the gym in the morning. I'll put eyes on things if it's not too hot. And then definitely this time of night, I enjoy being outside and just getting fresh air, grounding. I'm gonna go harvest some. We lost a mimosa tree. I'm gonna go harvest it and make medicine out of it. I'm also looking under here for the eggs and seeing if there's any eggs, and then looking to see if it's time to trellis this and get this on the trellis. This is close. Sometimes I'll tie string and pull it over. I'll give this another day till tomorrow, but that's all we do to manage them. So I just come out and just try to put eyes on as many leaves as possible and manage things and give it good airflow And that's really it. Now, as the season goes on, that gets a little bit harder to do. So thinning out consistently will make your life easier. I do this with zucchini and squash too, and staying on top of those squash bugs. If you get powdery mildew, there is a special recipe that I follow. I will link that below so you can make that. It is not going to get rid of powdery mildew in what, like you spray it once and you're never going to get it. Powdery mildew is a living organism that's around in the environment. It's going to attach itself to your top of your plants. And when we spray this spray that I've come up with on the top, it changes the acidity of the surface area. The powdery mildew can't survive in that, so it goes away. Now, I cut off the bad leaves and get rid of them. A lot of times I'll spray them too and then get rid of them. And then also I will spray if we get a lot of rain. Like if it was gonna rain tomorrow, I might spray tonight, and then after the rain I'll spray, just so that they have a good base. Sorry, we live in the mountains, and even though we're nowhere near the road, everything echoes here, and people drive these cars with no mufflers. They drive loud trucks around here. So that's how we do it. We just manage it and stay on top of it, and it's a fun chore. So through here, I have this end cap, and then I have my other tower, and so they're growing this way. And instead of just giving it this top part, because I'm growing so much food, I'm tying twine, and I'm allowing them to spread lengthwise. And so I've got a couple down here going, holding on really well. If these get too droopy or I feel they need some more support, I can tie them to the top. I can make a web. I'm doing it as they need them instead of creating them now and then maybe getting it wrong. So I'm just checking every day what needs a place to creep. Where's the best place? If it's in a top grow port, you know, we put it towards the top here, the middle, towards the middle, and so on. And I like the twine because at the end of the season I can cut the twine with the vines, throw it all in the compost area or to the chickens, and I don't have to try and unwind vines from like something like metal or something like that. If I was originally going to do metal wires for this, just because they'd be more stable than this, but it's a real pain. If you've never tried to get vines at the end of the season off and cleaned up, it can be a real pain. It'll be easy on the wood, but want to just be able to cut them, you can compost the twine down. So we've got this end cap going this way, our middle tower here, and this one's growing an abundance of cucumbers. These are a smaller variety cucumber, all sorts of things. Oh, that didn't look good. We've got one spaghetti squash looking terrible up here. It's like the roots fell out of the rock wool. We'll try and save it. If not, you know, there's bound to be losses. I don't really know what happened here, but we'll give it some time. It has one healthy leaf. It's protected under this broccoli leaf to give it a little bit more shade. If it's under stress, that'll help. On this tower here, I have my end cap this way, and I have vines going this way. So I'm growing vines on the 10 grow ports on this side, on the 10 on there. That leaves me about 8 that are not vines, although some of them still are. Like this is a vining plant. Yeah. And I have a broccoli and a pepper. This tower is going to run out of water faster than the other two, and it has already done that because there are so many vining things on here. So just be mindful, if you're going to grow like this, you can be filling your tanks every 3 days during the growing season. And someone recently said, oh my gosh, I'm going through so much water. In the summer, you can use half nutrients if you like, or anywhere between half and full. It's up to you, because they're sucking in so much water, and then there could be evaporation. Just depends where you're at. But they're just going through a lot of water. But this is a 3-month growing period. This is not a long time. It's not like we're going to be adding nutrients and water all year. That would be very expensive. On average, we're going through the gallon of A and B, which come together every 7 to 9 months. If you're growing outdoors and you're growing heavy fruiting things, I would say it's 7. If you're growing an assortment like peppers, don't take a lot of water, it can be 9. If you're growing indoors, you can go as long as 9 to 12 months depending on what you're growing. So overall, we're not going through a lot of solution, but in the summer, it may feel like you're blasting through water and solution. Still, the people in our area who are growing in the soil, they are watering for multiple hours a day. I'm filling up my tanks every 3 days, and they're not even empty at that point. So there's a huge difference. We use 90% less water in these systems than if you're growing in the soil. And it's a lot less work. There's also electricity. People worry about the electricity costs. These are running on a teeny tiny amount of power. This is like a fish tank fountain, a weak one at that, not even a strong fish tank pump. And it's not running full time, where they're running 5 minutes on, 15 off, I think, in the outside. Something like that. I don't remember off the top of my head. I have an ebook with all the details on exactly how much power they use. If you want that, I'll link it below. So we're using very little power. And if you have a soil garden, most people are still paying power to water their gardens and using a ton of water. So they're actually using a lot more power than just running this teeny tiny tank to get the water to turn on every once in a while. So we've got some powdery mildew here. Just kind of thin leaves, anything that's touching and not getting good airflow, we're just gonna get rid of it. These things grow leaves, like while I'm standing here, they're probably growing a new leaf. They are prolific in that, so you don't have to worry about cutting too much. I mean, I guess you do, but just be no more than a third. But also don't be afraid. If 2 leaves are touching each other, get rid of them. So that's this tower. Again, broccoli, all sorts of things. Couple of peppers. All right, and as we go this way, I have a 2-foot span in between my arbor and my tower on each side. That to me felt like a good distance to give these good airflow in between the tower and the trellis, and to extend, look, a pollinator, extend the growing space, because it gave me 2 more feet of vines that can grow. Here I have watermelon, I have pumpkin, it's already blooming. These are heavy, heavy plants that are gonna get insanely big. So there's some branching off that I'm gonna let grow on the rocks, because these are on the rocks. And then there's some, like this one here, that I'm gonna let grow up and around, and just, these plants are gonna intertwine at some point. They're not gonna stay on their one little string and behave. They're gonna go like this. That's why we also want to keep them nice and thinned out leaf-wise, so we can keep eyes on pests, give them breathing room. And this is a jelly melon, and I can have a pumpkin and a jelly melon hanging out together, but not feeling crowded. You're not gonna deal with overcrowding in a tower garden, because they're not fighting for nutrients like you would in the soil. It's more just managing airflow so that everybody's getting sun and everybody's getting good airflow, and we're preventing diseases and things like that. We have our butternut squash over here. Our baby is already producing fruit, cucumbers. The food on here is just so much more than I ever got in our soil gardens. Never had this much success with this many melons. We just don't have the space for it, and the pests are just out of control. Right in here, it's just the same as our other end. We have vines going this way. What do we have? This is like an orange cantaloupe, a traditional grocery store. Like I said, a pumpkin, a watermelon. On the other side, I actually have some bush watermelon, the sugar babies. So those don't vine. They're only about 3 or 4 feet. So those can just grow out off the tower. We have peppers. I've been harvesting peppers off of this tower. There's an eggplant hiding somewhere because it was getting too much sun too. And that's it. It's okra. We also have okra. Now, interesting, the okra is staying squatty and starting to fruit, and that was my hope. Okra can get 6 feet tall. It can be a gigantic plant. My hope was that we can dwarf it naturally just by putting it in this environment and see if it'll produce. And it's about to bloom here, and it's not even a foot tall. So it's not a special variety. It's just some plants and this is just kind of gardening for 20 plus years, you can kind of learn the personalities of plants and know, like, I can never make certain things smaller than they're supposed to be, and some things you can create an environment where they will adapt. Okra typically is one that will do that, and so far it is. Will it at some point want to shoot up and shoot up and shoot up? Yes. My hope is we can get a decent amount of food off of it before it takes off and decides to be some gigantic tree where we're going to need to remove it. Because at that point it would take up too much moisture. So I might even treat these as a turnover crop, harvest 20 or so okra off of this plant, and then have a new seedling ready to go in and pull this one out and let that one produce a second crop instead of letting this one produce 40 okra but ending up gigantic and taking over. Another option. Same with cucumbers. Cucumbers come and go fast. In the dead of the summer, they're not going to be super happy because they can get really bitter if you're in a real hot area. So they're sort of a mid to late spring, early summer, early fall kind of crop. So turn them over and start them a couple of times. When they get out of control, take them out. If they get too much powdery mildew, you'll have another one ready to take its place. I plan to manage those things because I really like to just plant them once when they're vining. And my zucchini and my squash, I've just found I enjoy maintaining them and keeping them alive all season versus I used to always interval plant and turn them over a lot. I'm just enjoying keeping them alive because I can. Couldn't do that in the soil gardens instead of starting over. Mature plants make better food faster too. And aside from that, that's really all I have to say about it. This works great for the price. I think it was very affordable. I thought this was very affordable, I think, for the price, and I didn't have to stake it in or anything. Like the ease, I had my sons build it. It was no big deal. I'm really happy with it. Is it a long-term solution? Probably not. I may get 3 years out of this, but it was a good way for me personally to know that yes, this setup I will do every year. There will be 3 towers with trellises between them every year. I absolutely love this setup and how this has turned out, and the way it looks against the house is just really pretty. And one really cool benefit of this that I have found is the birds like to sit on it, and they are going to help manage the pests. They will eat the squash baby bugs. If I happen to miss some eggs, the birds will be on it for me. So you've got this, there's a little bird poo in a few places on the leaves, but it's fun to see them out here enjoying this space, and it's just an extra level of protection for my plants. So thank you for joining me. I hope this gives you ideas on how to grow your own food at home, and not just a little bit of it, but a huge haul of all the things, because we can do that when we're homesteading with hydroponics.